my channel. My name is Rebecca and I'm going to show you my directional sign, and I'm kind of glad that I got the chance to do this. I've been wanting to do a directional sign since last fall, and I've kind of been putting it off. So I was at Dollar General and they had their plant sticks. They had a big box of them, and I must confess I grabbed one, maybe two. And I got to the register and I knew I was going to regret not grabbing more, because I knew that if I wanted to make one later in the season, or even, later in the fall or at Christmas time or whatever, that they weren't going to have those then. So I did grab several more. I lost my place in line and I just went back and I grabbed a cart and took, I think I grabbed 6. Anyway, because they aren't going to be available past the planting season. So I did grab several. It's a squirrel cage up here sometimes, and I will admit that. So I did grab several. And then I was at the Dollar Tree and they had their little wooden arrow signs, and so I grabbed those as well, because I don't know why I've been procrastinating. I guess I thought that this was going to be much more difficult than what it actually turned out to be, and so I was really kind of pleased with how this turned out. So come craft with me. In the Crafter Square section of my Dollar Tree, I found these cute wooden arrow signs. I thought they were just exactly what I needed, so I picked up 4 because I was unsure how many I was going to put together, and it turns out that's exactly the amount that I needed. I painted 2 in the Waverly chalk paint white, and I did both sides of these little arrow signs. I used a sponge brush, but you could use just about any kind of brush that you wanted. I'm just very comfortable using the sponge brushes, and then I rinse them out and I reuse them, and once they are, beyond redemption, then I just kind of toss them in the trash. But I have noticed throughout the spring and summer season that they have carried a couple different styles of these wooden signs. But when I went to make this project, this is the design that they had on hand. So that is what I am working with. I have also looked in the wedding section, the themed section, and they did have some wedding themed arrow signs that said reception, gifts, cocktails, that kind of thing. And they were little table signs. And I noticed that those could actually be sanded, and the little legs that made this sign stand up could be removed, and those could actually be painted and used as well. I took the label off of this. I'm kind of doing this a little backwards, but I took the label off of this, and then I just pulled the little hanger, the twine hanger, out, and it just kind of popped with a little elbow grease. It popped right out. I used my wire cutters, and then I just pulled that staple right out. I didn't sand where I pulled those out because there was really not an indentation, and there really wasn't any evidence left of any scarring. They really did just pull out nice and smooth. I saved that twine because I hate to throw anything away, and I hate to waste things, and I ended up using it later on in my project, so I was glad I hadn't tossed it in the trash. I covered this arrow in Waverly chalk paint color crimson, and I gave it a coat on the front and the back side, and I made sure I covered all the edges. I've mentioned it before, I craft at a community table in my family room, and it's directly under a ceiling fan. So I try to work as quickly as I can, especially when I'm using chalk paint, because it tends to dry things rather quickly. It also tends to make me very cold. So every now and then I see my big woolly sleeves poking into this video, and evidently that must have been a day that everybody in the house was a little bit warm and I was a little bit cold, and I was sitting under a ceiling fan. And this happens very frequently, and everybody says, "Girl, what is wrong with you?" I don't know. I'm just cold-natured. I just get cold. So every great once in a while, I'll just sit around with my big woolly jacket on, and I'm cold and everybody else is hot. So it's just my thermostat is broken. And some might say it's severely broken. So anyhow, I try to work very quickly when I'm sitting under that ceiling fan, because especially when I'm working with the chalk paint, I don't want it to dry and kind of leave a bunch of streaks. I didn't have the right color blue in the chalk paint because I'd been working with ocean. So I had this acrylic paint that I had picked up at the Dollar Tree. And so I thought I would use this on my third or my fourth arrow. And I really liked this color blue. And I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. But it did take 3 coats to cover this this wood plank, this wood arrow. And so, but it's a gorgeous color, and the paint covers very well. I just didn't want to leave a lot of streaks in the paint, so it did take 3 coats to achieve the coverage that I particularly was looking for. But Dollar Tree paint it's not sad and unfortunate. I used this stencil that I got at Walmart. It's a reusable stencil, and I will be honest with you, I was not crazy about the font. But I looked in my stash and I looked for every stencil that I had. I looked for stickers, and nothing I had fit the size that I needed for this project. So this was the stencil that I ended up using, even though I wasn't crazy about the font, but I just work with what I have sometimes. And so I laid it down on this little arrow, and I used my paint pens for this project because I found that when I do work with stencils, that it's easy to work with paint pens because the bleeding it's not as bad when you're doing it with a paint pen as opposed to blotting, and it's a lot less stressful to me. Working with a paint pen and stenciling that way, especially when you're doing letters. So I don't know, you guys can try it and see what you think when you're stenciling. But anyway, I used the white on the red, and then I used the blue on the white, and I tried very hard not to lay the stencil directly on what I had painted, because I'm not a good speller when it comes to spelling backwards, and that probably would have been the best way to do that, but that kind of makes my head hurt. So I just made sure that I kind of held it up and didn't lay it down on my fresh paint, and so that's how I ended up stenciling these arrows. If you had stickers that were the right size for this project, that would be a lot easier. If you had a Cricut, which I do have, I just choose not to use it a lot, that would be an easy fix for this project, and it would go a long way, and it might be a little quicker. But I like to show you projects that you don't need to use a Cricut for. I picked up this plant stick at the Dollar General. I picked up several, like I said, and I had some Color Place spray paint that I took outside, and I spray painted the plant stick. And while I was waiting for that to dry, I just Mod Podged over my little arrows that I had stenciled. And it didn't take very long for my stenciling to dry, because I'm under a ceiling fan. But I just Mod Podged over that, and then I took some Waverly antique wax, and I just kind of went along the edges and I streaked a little bit down the center because I thought it looked a little bit too new and a little bit too shiny, and I wanted it to look like it had maybe been standing in the yard for quite some time. Once I had it antiqued and rustic, then I took that twine that I had pulled off of these signs, and I thought I would just add a little bit of detail to my signs. And so I just wrapped a little bit and tied a very good tight knot around the center of two of them, and then I added some of this twine to the back part of the little arrow and then the front part of the arrow, and just to give it, and those I actually did put a tiny bit of the hot glue, wood glue stick to, just to make sure that it wouldn't go anywhere, and since it was kind of at a cattywampus angle, and so I just put a little bit of hot glue on that because I just thought maybe it needed just a little detail. I love the wood glue that you get at the Dollar Tree, and so I put a little bit of wood glue at the top of my plant stick, and then I went in with the wood hot glue just to give it a right now hold, and I just put a little bit of that in the center, and then I positioned my little arrow where I wanted it to go, and then the wood glue will be more of a permanent hold. And I just did that on each one of my little directional signs. I will tell you, we have had 60-mile-an-hour winds. We have had some thunderstorms, and my directional sign has not come out of the ground, and none of my little arrows have blown off. So it does, that wood glue from the Dollar Tree does give it a really nice, good solid hold, and I'm very impressed with it. I thought that the middle part of my little plant stick looked a little bit too stark, and I just wasn't really happy with it, so I took some of this nautical jute twine that I've been crafting with throughout the summer season and the patriotic season, and I just kind of sporadically wrapped it, not evenly, just kind of on top of each other and here and there and up and down this center bar, and I was really kind of liking the looks. I didn't glue it, I just tied it in a really tight knot, and then I wrapped it very good and tight, and then I just secured it with another really good knot. I did double knot it, and I did that on all three pieces. When I was done with that, I thought everything's better with a bow. I have this Dollar Tree ribbon that is not wired, so I just laid it on top of each other, and I kind of fluffed it out and got it the way that I thought it needed to look, and I just held it together with a chip clip and laid it to the side. I bought this Americana ribbon on Temu, and it is wired. So I did the exact same thing. I laid it end over end, and I pinched it in the middle, and then I just fluffed it out and made it the size that I wanted it to be, and then I just cut the tails off. And it's easy when you're putting a wired ribbon together with a ribbon that is not wired, and to make everything kind of, be a little bit more fluffy and full. So I just put some of this jute twine in the middle of that, and I gave it a really good tight knot. The tighter the knot, then the more that your white ribbon that is not wired is going to fluff up. And I thought that the end of my little directional sign needed a little bit of detail, so I just kind of tied another little knot at the bottom of that. I wrapped a little bit more jute twine, and I also wanted something for my bow to hold on to. I didn't want to put hot glue onto this because I did not want the sun to melt it. So I just wrapped my little
tails from my bow into this little jute twine that I had at the bottom, and I made a really good solid knot. And then I just fluffed it all up. And once I was through fluffing it up, then I just dovetailed the ends of my bow and cut them to the length that I wanted them to be. And my sign was all finished, and it has held up all through this summer season, and the wind, the rain has not bothered it. It's still standing tall and proud, and it points to snow cones and fireworks and a bandstand and ice cream, and I am absolutely in love with it. It was so easy to make and so budget friendly, and I think that everyone needs one of these in their yard because it is just that dang cute, and I am in love with it. I am excited to make one for every season now because it was that easy and that cute.
So I hope that you enjoyed that. I enjoyed making it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Crafting is not about perfection. It is just about doing something that makes you happy and makes you feel good and brings a little joy and happiness into your life. So don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell so that you're notified every time that I've uploaded my next video, and give me a thumbs up. Thank you for those of you who have joined my crafting journey. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much, and I hope that you understand that I'm not going to be a fancy girl. I don't do fancy. I don't do intricate. I'm not really interested in doing things that are over the top. I like to do simple, easy, budget-friendly crafts, and that's what I do for home and for my work home. I do things on a budget, and crafting is, to me, therapeutic, and I just enjoy sitting down and creating something with my hands that just bring me joy. And that's what I like to share with you. So thank you for all of you who have joined my crafting journey, and I hope that you have a very wonderful and happy weekend. Thanks for watching Crafts Lost in Chaos.